The Galactic Council was a great assembly that ruled most of the known galaxy and had lasted for thousands of years, and its members came from many species with long histories and powerful fleets, and they believed there was no new danger left to face. The council gathered again inside the high towers of the Citadel Station, which floated above the neutral planet Orvalis, and the wide chambers were filled with voices of panic and worry. Reports had come from the outer regions of space, and they spoke of fleets that had vanished, and colonies that had stopped responding, and planets that had gone dark without warning. The first reports were dismissed, because the frontier was known for pirates and strange anomalies. But when the fifth system fell silent, the council called for an emergency session. Ambassador Lyrock of the Velthar stood at the center of the hall and raised his silver hands as the others argued. He was an old diplomat who had seen many wars, and he said that something unknown was moving through the stars, and it was not a natural disaster. He showed images from probe recordings that displayed shattered warships floating near the ruins of a colony world. The metal of the ships had been sliced so cleanly that even the machines of the council could not explain it. The recordings ended with a single transmission that lasted only a few seconds. It was a human voice repeating a short sentence in English, and then the signal vanished. No one could understand what it meant at first, because the language was ancient and believed lost. Then one of the archivists from the Knowledge Guild stood and said that it was Terran speech. The chamber fell silent because the word Terran had not been spoken for centuries. Humans had been gone for almost 200 years. Their world Earth had been closed and forgotten after the collapse when the old alliances fell apart. The council had erased them from the records as a dead species that failed to adapt. No one had seen a human ship in generations, yet the message from the ruins had come in their tongue. Ambassador Lyrock asked the question that everyone feared. What if the humans were not gone? What if they had survived beyond the mapped regions? The council leader, Chancellor Orvan, dismissed it at first and said it was impossible, because no colony could live alone that long. But as more data arrived from patrol fleets, the evidence became stronger. Ships with unknown markings had appeared on scanners near the border of council space. They did not respond to hails, and when approached they vanished faster than any known drive could allow. Admiral Keith of the Drayan Navy suggested it might be a new empire born from forgotten colonies. He proposed sending a small task force to make contact. The council voted in favor, though many feared the risk. Soon a fleet of exploration vessels set out toward the Orion Arm, where the strange signals had been found. Among them was the exploration ship Asteria under the command of Captain Mira Lawson. She was young and confident and believed in the idea that knowledge could prevent war. Her crew was made of mixed species, and all of them were trained to handle unknown encounters. When they left the Citadel, they expected to meet traders or settlers, but not a ghost from the past. Weeks passed in silence as they traveled through uncharted space. Then one day their long-range scanners detected a group of ships moving with perfect formation. The unknown vessels had sleek black hulls that reflected no light and emitted no common energy signature. Captain Lawson opened a channel and introduced herself and her mission, but there was no reply. The ships moved closer, and for a moment everyone on the bridge held their breath. Then one of the unknown ships transmitted coordinates and a short message in Old Terran English that translated to, "Do not cross again." The message was repeated 3 times before the ships turned away and vanished into the darkness. The crew of the Asteria was shaken. Mira sent the data to the council and waited for orders. When the message reached the Citadel, the chamber fell into uproar. Many claimed it was a trick by pirates. Others said it was proof that the humans had returned. Ambassador Lyrock demanded that they treat this as a major threat. The council analysts ran every code they had and confirmed the signal was not forged. The energy signature matched ancient Terran communication standards. There was no more doubt. Humanity had survived. Chancellor Orvan ordered the frontier fleets to prepare for observation only, but Admiral Keth disagreed. He wanted to send more ships to show strength. He said that if the humans were aggressive, then the council must respond with force. His words gained support from the more militant members who feared losing power. Against the advice of the diplomats, a large armada was sent beyond the border. They moved quietly and believed they would surprise whoever was there. They were wrong. When the armada entered the dark space beyond the Orion Arm, every signal they sent stopped at once. Hours later, only fragments of their ships were found drifting near a dying star. There were no survivors. The destruction was complete and clean, as if the fleet had been taken apart by invisible hands. The Council refused to believe that such power could come from humans. But then came a transmission to every major station in the galaxy. The same calm voice spoke in perfect English, and the translation followed in every known language. It said, "We warned you. Stay out of our territory. This is the last warning." After that, all contact ceased. The Galactic Council held its longest emergency session in recorded history. The ambassadors argued day and night. Panic spread among the member worlds as trade routes were closed and fleets recalled. People asked if the old stories were true. Stories that told of humans who once challenged empires and built machines that thought like them. Ambassador Lirok tried to calm the chaos. He said that if the humans had survived, they might only want peace. But the destruction of the fleet could not be ignored. The Council's scientists began to classify the threat, and a special group of analysts was formed. They studied every report and every image. After a long debate, they reached a conclusion that made the chamber fall into complete silence. The unknown power was not alien or artificial. It was human. The report was marked with the highest danger rating ever used in the Council's history. They gave it a name that would echo across the stars. Category Red. The classification meant that this species was not only powerful but uncontrollable, and potentially beyond reason. It was reserved for life forms that could threaten the stability of the entire galaxy. The Council had never used it before. When the label was read aloud, many ambassadors refused to believe it. The Chancellor himself looked pale. He asked what proof they had, and the analyst simply showed a recording of a Terran warship emerging from faster-than-light space. Its hull carried markings that translated to Terran dominion. The ship was massive, and its design was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. It released a pulse that disabled the observation drones and vanished again. The meeting ended in fear and disbelief. The Council had seen enough to know that the balance of power had changed forever. Ambassador Lirok looked out the window of the Citadel Tower as the stars turned slowly beyond the glass. He whispered to himself that the age of safety was over. Somewhere out there, the lost children of Earth had returned, and they were no longer the same. The galaxy that once thought them extinct would soon learn what they had become. The Council members left the chamber in silence as the new classification spread through the systems. Category Red had been assigned. The new species was known. It was us. 200 years had passed since the world called Earth went silent, and many believed that humans had vanished forever, and their home was left as a legend of a violent species that destroyed itself, but far from the old maps. Where the Council's reach ended, humanity had survived. They did not live on one planet anymore, but across many worlds, bound by a single dream of freedom and survival. They had built their own empire known as the Terran Dominion, and every colony was united by the belief that they would never again bow to another power. Commander Ethan Brooks was one of the officers who carried this belief deep in his heart. He had been born on a frontier colony called Vesta 9, where the air was thin and the land cold and harsh. He had grown up hearing stories of how humanity was once laughed at by the other races for being weak and impulsive, but now, as he stood on the command deck of a massive battle carrier, he knew those days were gone. The Terran Dominion had spent generations hidden beyond the galactic borders, building fleets in silence. They had no council laws to obey and no treaties to hold them back. Every year they expanded deeper into the void, and their scientists discovered how to bend light and energy in ways that made their ships invisible to most known sensors. Their power came not only from weapons but from unity, because they remembered what had happened the last time they trusted the Council. When the Council had left Earth to die, after the collapse, humanity had learned that only strength could protect peace. Admiral Nora Hayes commanded the Dominion's High Fleet and was respected by every soldier who served under her. She was known for calm judgment and a voice that could silence a room without raising its tone. Nora had worked beside Ethan for many years and trusted him more than anyone else in the command chain. Together they planned the future of the Dominion and its borders, and how to deal with the outside galaxy once contact became inevitable. She often told Ethan that the day would come when the Council would find them again, and when that day came, they had to be ready to show that humanity had changed. News reached them when an unknown signal was detected near the border of the Orion sector. A Council vessel had entered Dominion space without clearance. The fleet's sensors followed its path quietly and confirmed that it was an exploration ship. Ethan wanted to open communication, but Nora decided to wait. She said they would first watch how the intruders behaved. The Dominion had rules for such things. They would warn once and act only if ignored. When the exploration ship did not stop, a message was sent to them in Old English saying, "Do not cross again." The message was calm and clear. The foreign ship turned away, but not before recording every detail it could see. A few weeks later, another group of ships appeared, this time much larger. They carried weapons and their engines burned bright across the scanners. Nora watched them from the command room of her flagship named the Iron Dawn. She knew what was coming. The Council was testing their strength. Ethan asked if they should prepare to strike first, but Nora refused. She said humanity would never start the fight. They would end it if needed. When the Council armada crossed into Dominion territory, the human fleets were already waiting. From hidden stations near a gas giant, hundreds of ships emerged. They moved in perfect formation and surrounded the invaders before the Council captains even realized it. The human ships did not fire first. They only jammed communications and disabled weapons with precise energy pulses. But one of the Council captains panicked and ordered an attack. It was over in minutes. The Terran ships moved faster than light, and every Council vessel was dismantled by focused beams that left no debris large enough to recover. Not one human ship was destroyed. The battle ended before most of the Council crew even saw their attackers. When Ethan stood at the viewport afterward, he felt no pride, only a heavy silence. He had fought before, but this was different. These were not pirates or raiders. This was the Council. Nora walked beside him and said quietly that the galaxy would now remember them. The Dominion broadcast a short message to all nearby systems saying, "We warned you. We do not seek war. Stay out of our borders." The message was repeated 3 times before silence returned. Across the Dominion worlds, the people gathered to hear the news. Some celebrated because it proved that humans were no longer weak. Others feared that it would bring the Council's wrath. On New Terra, the capital world, the streets glowed with soft blue light from the great spires, and screens showed the image of Admiral Nora Hayes as she addressed the people. Her words were steady and simple. She said that the Dominion would not attack first, but they would defend every human life without hesitation. She reminded them that fear had once broken humanity apart, but unity had rebuilt them stronger than before. Her message spread through every colony, and even reached the hidden outposts near the edge of the void. The people believed her because they had seen her fight and lead for decades. In the months that followed, there was no answer from the Council. Patrol ships reported strange signals, but no fleets appeared. Many thought the danger was over, but Nora and Ethan knew better. They had read the old records and knew how the Council reacted when it felt threatened. They began strengthening the defenses around the border worlds. New stations were built armed with automated defense grids powered by artificial intelligence. The Dominion's engineers created warships that could repair themselves using nanostructures drawn from surrounding matter. Every ship carried a fusion core linked directly to its pilot's neural implant, allowing thought-level control. The Council had nothing like it. Humanity had moved beyond simple machines. They had become one with their technology. Ethan spent his nights studying star charts in silence. He wondered if peace was possible or if they were already on the path to another war. Nora joined him sometimes and reminded him that they had survived worse. She said that survival was in their nature. He smiled but said that the galaxy might not forgive them for it. She replied that they did not need forgiveness. They needed respect. One night a transmission arrived marked with the highest priority. It was not from any Dominion source. It came from deep space outside the known lanes. The message contained only coordinates and a single line of text in Old English. It said, "We know you are there. Let us talk." Nora stared at the message for a long time. She knew it could be a trap, but also knew they could not ignore it. She ordered the Iron Dawn to change course toward the coordinates. Ethan looked uneasy but followed her order. When they arrived, they found an ancient Council relay station drifting in the darkness. The station was offline and empty, but the message continued to play through automated loops. Nora realized that someone on the other side was trying to reach them. She ordered the engineers to open a secure channel. For hours, there was nothing but static. Then a faint voice came through, speaking in broken English. It was a Council diplomat asking for peace talks. He said the Council wanted to understand what had happened. Nora listened but did not respond immediately. She told Ethan that this could be the start of something new, or the beginning of something terrible. She finally said one short sentence back. "You wanted to know if we survived. Now you know." The channel went silent again, but she knew the message would reach the Council soon. As the Iron Dawn turned back toward New Terra, Ethan stood beside her and asked what she thought would happen next. Nora said that the galaxy would now have to decide whether it wanted peace or fear, because the humans would not hide again. She looked out into the stars and whispered that the time of silence was over. Humanity was no longer a forgotten story. It was a power that the galaxy would have to face. Captain Mira Lawson sat alone in her quarters, aboard the exploration ship Asteria as it drifted through the quiet lanes of council space, and she could not sleep because her mind was full of the message she had heard months ago from the humans. She had been the first to meet them, or at least to see them, and the memory still echoed in her head. Do not cross again. The words were simple but heavy, and she could not forget the calm voice that said them. The council had tried to hide the truth from the public, but rumors spread faster than any official report. People were whispering in every station and trade hub about the humans who had returned and destroyed a fleet in minutes. Some said they were machines now, and some said they had become gods. Mira did not believe in gods, but she had seen enough to know that humanity was far from what the old records described. The Galactic Council had changed after the loss of their armada. Fear was in every meeting. Chancellor Orvin spoke of containment and defense, while Ambassador Lerock demanded that they find a way to communicate before war began. But the other members of the council wanted revenge. They could not accept that an old species once thought dead now had the power to bring them to their knees. Mira had been ordered to remain silent about what she saw, yet she was summoned again to the Citadel. The Chancellor wanted her report in person. When she entered the great chamber, she saw that the atmosphere was tense. Rows of alien faces stared at her as she walked to the center of the room. Orvin asked her what she had seen during her contact. She answered honestly. She said the humans did not attack first. They only warned us and waited. She said they were disciplined and confident, and that their ships were beyond anything she had ever seen. She said that if the council chose to fight again, it would be a mistake. Her words caused a wave of whispers around the chamber. The Chancellor frowned and asked if she was suggesting that the council surrender to an old primitive species. Mira replied that they were not primitive anymore. They had evolved. Ambassador Lerock supported her and said they must open talks before fear destroyed them all. But Admiral Keth shouted that humans were too dangerous and that peace would only give them time to grow stronger. The room divided in seconds. Some called for diplomacy and others for preemptive war. Mira stood quietly as they argued until Orvin struck his staff on the floor and ended the session. He ordered that no ship was to enter human space without his permission, but he also authorized the creation of a special observation fleet that would monitor the border. He wanted to be prepared for anything. Mira knew it was only a matter of time before someone broke the rule. Meanwhile, far from the Citadel, the Terran Dominion continued to expand. Commander Ethan Brooks was assigned to oversee the defense of a new outpost on the edge of the Perseus sector. The outpost was built inside an asteroid field and served as a listening post for council movement. Ethan spent his days reviewing reports and his nights thinking about the strange message they had received earlier. The one that said, "We know you are there. Let us talk." He had told Admiral Nora Hayes about it, and she had answered that she was waiting for a response from the council. Weeks passed with silence, and both of them began to wonder if the galaxy would ever choose peace. One day, a Dominion patrol detected unknown ships near the border. They were small and unarmed, but clearly of council design. Ethan ordered them to be scanned. He found that they carried no weapons but heavy recording equipment. They were spy drones sent to gather information. He allowed them to record for a short while and then sent a pulse that disabled them gently without harm. He left one functional and sent it back with a short message encoded in the signal. It said, "We see you too. Go home." When the drone returned to the council border, it caused panic. The message was simple, but it proved that humans were aware of everything the council was doing. Admiral Keth took this as an insult and called for immediate military action. He said the council could not live under the shadow of fear. Ambassador Lerock again pleaded for restraint and warned that another conflict could end in destruction for both sides. Orvin hesitated because he knew the truth. The council fleets had no defense against the technology the humans used. They still did not understand how their weapons worked. Some scientists claimed it was a fusion of organic and synthetic design beyond their reach. Orvin finally ordered a diplomatic attempt, but only a small one. He asked Mira Lawson to lead it. She was to travel alone in a fast ship to the coordinates where contact was first made. She was to offer communication and peace. Mira accepted the mission, though she knew the risk. She told herself that someone had to try because the galaxy could not survive another war. As she left the Citadel, she looked back once and saw Ambassador Lirok nod quietly in support. He was the only one who believed peace was possible. Mira traveled for days through silent space until she reached the edge of human territory. She sent out a signal identifying herself and her ship. For hours there was no response. Then suddenly space shimmered and a massive ship appeared in front of her. It was black and smooth with no visible lights, and it moved with grace that seemed impossible for its size. A calm voice spoke through the comms saying, "Identify yourself." Mira introduced herself and said she came to talk on behalf of the Galactic Council. The voice was silent for a moment, then said, "Stand by." Her sensors showed she was being scanned from all sides. She sat still, trying not to show fear. Finally, the voice returned. A docking corridor extended toward her ship. The voice said, "You will be received. Do not attempt to record." Mira took a deep breath and agreed. The corridor connected and she stepped inside wearing her translation suit. The air inside was clean and warm. She followed the path until she reached a large chamber filled with soft blue light. 2 humans were waiting for her. One was Admiral Nora Hayes and the other was Commander Ethan Brooks. Nora greeted her politely and said she appreciated her courage. Mira replied that she came to ask for peace. Nora smiled faintly and said peace is what we also want, but peace must be built on respect, not fear. Ethan watched her silently. Mira explained that the council was afraid because they did not understand the power humanity now held. Nora said fear is natural, but it does not excuse the actions of those who attacked us. Mira agreed and said that she could carry a message back to the council if the Dominion wished. Nora nodded and gave her a data crystal containing a simple statement. It said the Terran Dominion recognizes the Galactic Council as a sovereign body and seeks peaceful coexistence based on mutual respect and non-interference. It also added one more line. If we are attacked again, we will respond without mercy. Mira accepted it and promised to deliver it unchanged. Before she left, she asked one question. What happened to Earth? Nora paused and said quietly, Earth still lives, but it is not for others to see. It is our memory and our warning. Mira understood that some truths were better left untouched. She thanked them and returned to her ship. When she returned to the Citadel, the council gathered once more. Mira handed the message to the Chancellor. The room was silent as he read it aloud. Many were relieved that the humans wanted peace, but Admiral Keth scoffed and said they were only buying time. Lirok argued that this was their chance to start again. Orvin looked between them and said that the council would acknowledge the message but would not lower its guard. The classification category red would remain. He said the humans were still too powerful and too unpredictable. That night, Mira sat by her window on the station and watched the stars. She thought about the humans she had met and how calm they were. She felt that they did not want war, but she also knew they would never be ruled again. Somewhere deep inside, she admired them. She wondered what it would take for the galaxy to see them not as monsters, but as survivors. She whispered to herself that maybe fear was the real enemy. Far away on New Terra, Nora looked at the stars too. She knew the council's fear would not fade easily. Ethan came to her side and asked if she thought peace would last. She said for now, yes, but the galaxy has a short memory. The stars burned quietly around them as if listening. The silence of space carried their unspoken truth. The humans had returned and no power could change that anymore. The Galactic Council had never felt so divided in its long history, and the loss of pride weighed heavily on the members as they debated what to do about the humans. Every system had sent reports, and the word Category Red echoed in every meeting. The Council fleets were on constant alert, and every world prepared defenses in case the humans acted aggressively again. Ambassador Lirok pleaded for calm, but most of the counselors could only see danger. They feared a species that had once been thought extinct, and now controlled power beyond their understanding. Admiral Keth pushed for a full mobilization of all remaining fleets and called for immediate strikes on the frontier if humans showed the slightest movement. Orvin tried to balance both sides, but he knew that even his words might not hold the council together. Meanwhile, on the edge of Dominion space, Commander Ethan Brooks inspected the new fortifications on the mining world of Helios 7. The planet was remote and harsh, but its position allowed the Dominion to monitor council movements without being seen. The cities were built with advanced shielding and energy barriers that could resist bombardment for hours, and the military stations were equipped with drones that repaired themselves automatically. Ethan walked through the command center, and watched as engineers coordinated the construction of new ships. He felt pride in what humanity had built in secrecy and silence. They had turned what the galaxy thought of as a primitive species into a power that no one could ignore. Admiral Nora Hayes entered the room and stood beside him. She had just returned from a reconnaissance mission and reported that Council patrols were increasing near their borders. Ethan asked if she thought they were planning another attack. She shook her head and said it was too early to tell. The humans did not act aggressively unless provoked. Their strength was their patience and control. If the Council attacked first, they would find out what Category Red really meant. For weeks, the Dominion monitored the outer sectors, and every anomaly was investigated. New communication relays allowed instant reporting, and the Council's every movement was recorded. Humans had learned that information was as powerful as weapons. They studied every pattern and prepared for the moment when diplomacy failed or war became inevitable. The Dominion scientists worked tirelessly to develop new technologies. They created ships with neural interfaces that linked pilots directly to the vessel. The vessels could respond to thought as if they were part of the pilot's body. Weapon systems were redesigned to be precise and efficient. Even their defenses were upgraded with self-repairing armor and energy shields that adapted in real time. The Council, unaware of the full extent of these developments, tried to reopen talks. Ambassador Lyrock led a small delegation to approach Dominion space under the cover of a neutral corridor. The humans detected them immediately. Commander Ethan ordered the fleet to prepare a formal reception. It was not an attack but a demonstration of readiness. The Council delegates were escorted to a meeting station orbiting a small moon. When they arrived, they were greeted by Nora and Ethan, who explained that humanity did not wish to fight, but that it would defend itself without hesitation. Lyrock was surprised by the calm demeanor and by the advanced systems on display. He realized that the humans had become something beyond normal understanding. The delegates were shown the capabilities of the Dominion without fear. Ships that repaired themselves, fleets that could move faster than light in formation, and weapon systems that could disable multiple targets with precision were displayed. Nora told them that humans had learned from the past and would not make the same mistakes again. Lyrock understood that the warning was clear. Humanity was no longer a species that could be controlled or ignored. The Council representatives left the meeting with a mix of relief and terror. They returned to the Citadel to report the facts, but no one could ignore the impression that humans had changed the balance of power forever. Back on New Terra, Ethan and Nora reviewed the fleet's readiness. They knew the Council was scared but could not admit it. The humans would not start a war, but they would respond immediately to any threat. The Dominion's borders were extended to include several hidden jump points and observation posts. Every new outpost was equipped with sensors and automated defense systems. Nora said that the Council would eventually test them again, and when they did, the galaxy would witness the full might of humanity. Ethan nodded and said that it was not for conquest but for survival. He believed that humans had learned from history. Fear had nearly destroyed them once, and now they would never allow it again. One day, a Council envoy returned to the Citadel with news that another fleet had disappeared near Dominion space. The report said that the vessels had been scanned and then dismantled almost instantly. Panic spread across the Council. They could not explain it, and many feared that this was just the beginning. The Chancellor called for an emergency session, but some councillors wanted to retreat from the frontier and accept the humans as the new masters. Orvin refused. He said that Council space could not be abandoned and that diplomacy must continue. Others argued that diplomacy had failed. The humans had already made it clear that they would not be ruled again. In the Dominion Command Center, Ethan received intelligence reports of unusual Council activity. Fleets were moving to positions near the border, but they did not cross. Nora said that the Council had learned to fear the Dominion. It was not because of hatred or revenge, but because they understood now that humans could not be controlled. Ethan studied the reports quietly. He knew that one wrong move could trigger a war, but he also understood that the humans would not hesitate to defend themselves. Their strength lay in unity and intelligence. They had prepared for centuries. The Dominion decided to send a message across the frontier to remind the galaxy that they did not seek war, but that they would not be taken lightly. Nora composed a simple statement. It said that the Terran Dominion recognized the Council as a sovereign body and would respect its borders, but any violation of human space would be met with immediate action. The statement was broadcast through multiple channels with encrypted delivery to every known council system. Within hours, every member world knew that humanity was serious. The message caused confusion and fear. Some worlds tried to send envoys to negotiate while others began building defensive fleets. The council itself could only watch and realize that humans were no longer a species that could be ignored or underestimated. In private, Ethan spoke to Nora and said that the galaxy would now behave differently. Nora agreed and said that the humans would never again be treated as second class. They had returned and the galaxy must respect them. They looked out at the stars in silence. The Dominion had survived, evolved, and strengthened. They were prepared for anything. The council would learn that fear could not make humans surrender. The stars outside burned quietly and the Dominion fleet moved among them, calm, ready, and unshakable. Humanity had returned as Category Red. The galaxy would never forget it. The galaxy was quiet in a way it had never been before, and the silence was heavy with tension because every world knew that humanity had returned, and that it was no longer a species to underestimate. The Terran Dominion continued to expand its borders carefully, but every move was observed by the Council. The humans had not sought war, but they had made it clear that any attack would be met with immediate and overwhelming response. Commander Ethan Brooks walked through the halls of New Terra's capital city and saw the citizens preparing for the next generation of ships. Schools trained young pilots and engineers. Scientists worked on improving technology, and leaders discussed strategies for peace and defense. Ethan thought about how far humanity had come and how the galaxy would soon have to accept that humans were no longer simple beings of flesh and bone, but a species united with its machines and knowledge. Admiral Nora Hayes joined him and they spoke quietly about the council. She said that fear would always be their enemy. The humans had survived once because they trusted each other and because they never stopped learning. Now they were stronger than ever. Ethan nodded and said that the galaxy might not forgive them for it, but humans did not ask for forgiveness. They only asked to be left alone and respected. Nora added that respect was earned by power and wisdom, and humanity had both. They walked together to the observation deck where the stars stretched endlessly, and Ethan thought about the old Earth and the memories carried by the humans who had survived. Meanwhile, the council debated again and the title Category Red haunted every conversation. No one wanted to provoke the humans, but no one wanted to admit that they could not control them. Ambassador Lyrock pleaded for understanding and suggested that the council accept humans as a separate power and negotiate terms for coexistence. Others disagreed and demanded that they take action to show dominance. Orvin, the Chancellor, listened to both sides and finally said that the Council must avoid unnecessary conflict, but be ready for any attack. It was a delicate balance, and every member knew that one mistake could lead to disaster. On the frontier, human scouts reported unusual Council movements, but the Dominion knew they were only preparing defensive measures. Ethan and Nora discussed whether to intervene and decided that observation was enough. Humans would not attack first and would not violate agreements. Their strength lay in patience and discipline. Every patrol was ready to respond, but no action would be taken until provoked. The Dominion fleets moved like shadows through space, powerful and silent. Their ships were fast, self-repairing, and equipped with weapons that could disable fleets without destroying entire worlds. They were a warning to the galaxy, but not a threat to life. One day a council envoy sent a message requesting a formal meeting on neutral ground. The Chancellor wanted a delegation and ordered Mira Lawson to lead it. She had met humans before and understood their ways. The Dominion approved the request and set up a station in deep space far from any border. When the council delegation arrived, they were escorted by Admiral Nora Hayes and Commander Ethan Brooks. The council representatives were shocked by the scale and technology of the human station. It was massive and fully automated. Every system worked in harmony with human operators and artificial intelligence. The humans welcomed them politely and invited them to discuss terms. Mira explained that the humans did not want conflict, but would defend their territory without hesitation. Nora added that humanity's past mistakes had taught them that trust alone was not enough to survive. Ethan presented the council with a simple fact. Humans were no longer the species they once knew. They were stronger, smarter, and united. The council listened in disbelief as the humans demonstrated their advanced technology and the capability to protect themselves. The council representatives realized that humanity's power was real and unstoppable. The discussions continued for days. The humans offered terms that emphasized mutual respect and non-interference. They promised not to attack any council world as long as their borders were honored. The council members were hesitant, but saw that resistance would only provoke a human response that could destroy fleets and worlds. Ambassador Lirok argued that this was the opportunity to create a lasting peace and that the galaxy could not afford another war. Orvin agreed and signed preliminary agreements, acknowledging the Terran Dominion as a sovereign power. The room was silent as the delegates left, realizing that humanity had claimed its place in the galaxy not through aggression, but through strength and wisdom. Back on New Terra, Ethan and Nora watched the stars in quiet satisfaction. The council would now treat humans with respect, because they had no choice. Humanity had survived centuries of neglect and had emerged stronger than ever. Ethan thought about the old Earth and the people who had lived and died to make this possible. Nora reminded him that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would test them again, but humans would be ready. They had learned that power alone did not ensure survival. Unity, intelligence, and preparation were what made them unstoppable. The message from the Dominion to the galaxy was simple. Humanity had returned. They would not hide. They would defend themselves but not seek war. Any attack would be met with overwhelming response, and any betrayal would not be forgiven. The galaxy understood now that humans were Category Red, not because they wanted to destroy, but because they could. Every world, every fleet, every diplomat carried the warning in their minds. Humans had returned not as conquerors, but as guardians of their own destiny. Ethan walked through the streets of New Terra and saw the citizens preparing for the future. Children learned to operate small ships. Engineers worked on improving shields and weapons, and scientists developed new methods of communication and travel. The people were calm because they trusted their leaders and their technology. They understood that the galaxy had changed. The humans were no longer weak or forgotten. They were united, disciplined, and powerful. Nora visited each fleet and every outpost personally. She reminded the soldiers that strength must always be tempered with wisdom. They were ready for anything, but they would not abuse their power. Discipline and patience were what kept them alive for centuries. Ethan knew that the Council would continue to fear them, and that the galaxy would try to test them. But he also knew that humanity was prepared. They had grown stronger from their history, and now the universe would see that humans could not be controlled, feared, or ignored. At night, Ethan and Nora stood on the observation deck looking at the stars. The galaxy was vast and filled with unknown dangers, but humanity had survived everything thrown at them. They had evolved into something more than anyone could predict. Humans were now beyond simple definitions and labels. They had become a species that existed as one with their technology, their fleets, and their knowledge. The stars burned quietly around them, and humanity waited patiently, knowing that any challenge from the galaxy would be met with calm, precision, and power. The Council had learned the lesson too late. Category Red was not a threat to conquer worlds, but a warning. Humans had returned, and they had grown beyond fear and control. The galaxy had no choice but to respect them or face consequences they could not survive. Ethan and Nora stood silently, watching the lights of distant systems and knowing that the human era had begun. The stars stretched endlessly, and humanity was ready to meet the universe as it was meant to be faced. Strength, wisdom, unity, and resolve were their legacy. The galaxy would remember this day forever.